Clearly, children from a very young age ask questions that at least sound like philosophers' questions. They tend to keep going with the why questions beyond the point where, as it were, a normal adult would do so. That makes them exactly like philosophers.
It actually came about as a result of having a child. When my son was about 5, what happened is he started asking questions that I recognized as distinctly philosophical. In particular, I remember he was really interested in how the first human being came into existence. He said he understood that I had parents, my wife had parents, each of those, his grandparents had parents. He said, but what about the first human being? You know, if you're a philosopher, this rings, there are these paradoxes from ancient Greek philosophy called Zeno's paradoxes. And I thought, if kids are really interested in these questions, why don't we honor that and, talk about it? Recently, I developed a course in which my college students go into classrooms and they're the ones who actually do the facilitating of the discussions. I have worked with teachers and I actually have gone into the classrooms and conducted philosophical discussions with children. So you remember who I am?
Yeah.
So I'm the professor and these are my students. And so they've been talking about philosophy with you for, remember how long? A number of weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so you had a great discussion today, and I thought it was really interesting.
We think about what we just heard.
We decide if we agree or disagree.
At this point, what's happened is we've become part of the curriculum of the second graders at the Martin Luther King School.
So how old are you guys?
7 and a half. 6.
I think when people come into the classroom and look, I guess they're struck by 2 things. The first thing is they see a bunch of kids sitting around in a circle. The kids are talking to each other. And they're asking each other questions and discussing issues with each other. So you really see kids talking and thinking.
When my baby cousin, he always cries. He'd be talking baby language, I know what he says, and he'd be hungry, and I had to feed him.
We don't teach them what philosophers have said about anything. What we want the children themselves to be philosophizing.
Because baby can't talk because they're small.
Often people, when they hear, we're going to teach philosophy for children, they think, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do? And they, you think of do you have little cartoons with like Plato and Socrates? And no, we never mention those names. What we do is, and we read them a book and then we get them to think about. We ask them questions based on the narrative of the book, but that deal with the philosophical issues that the books raise. Arnold Lobel, who's the author of the Frog and Toad stories, had this intuitive sense of philosophy. What he manages to do in almost all the Frog and Toad stories is to take some concept or some notion that we use all the time.
They came to a dark cave. A big snake came out of the cave.
"Hello, Lunch," said the snake.
He opened his wide mouth. Frog and Toad jumped away. Toad was shaking. "I'm not afraid," he cried.
What is it to be brave? He concocts these stories in such a way as to make us think about and be puzzled by, well, what is it? Can I be scared and brave?
Toad stayed in bed. Frog stayed in the closet. They both stayed there for a very long time, just feeling brave together.
They run away from every danger they face, and yet they say, we're being brave. So then we think, well, is that really bravery?
So were Frog and Toad brave?
Yes.
No.
We'll talk about like story settings and plot and character and the theme of the story, but never can we really sit down with the story and have a discussion where there's agreements and disagreements and who's brave and what does brave mean. Those types of ideas we don't really get to explore as much.
I got a question. Could you go back to the snake part? They're not brave because they ran from the snake.
I think they were brave because they ran through they almost got crushed by rocks, and they just kept running and running, and they were running and running and running, and then they weren't afraid to like run away and stuff. So they are scared.
Philosophy has a bad reputation for whatever reason. When people hear philosophy, they think boring books and deadly discussion. But this approach is the opposite. I think the idea of introducing the discussion through picture books is great because all children love picture books.
I set the class up so that each book would cover a different area of philosophy. So we began with an ethical question about the nature of bravery. We then discussed questions in epistemology, the theory of knowledge, how do you know what you know? Questions about an area called metaphysics, which talks about the structure of the world. We talk about social and political philosophy. We do aesthetics. I mean, we really cover a gamut. The amazing thing is that children's literature very often focuses on fundamental philosophical ideas.
Frederick seemed half asleep. "Are you dreaming, Frederick?" they asked reproachfully. But Frederick said,
Oh no, I am gathering words, for the winter days are long and many, and will run out of things to say. Do you guys remember that all the mice were gathering things and they kept asking for Frederick to help?
Yeah.
Do you think that he helped?
They were doing hard work and he wasn't.
Okay, you were doing hard work. Yes, Cameron?
I think, he did help and he didn't.
Is it okay in a society to have some people, like their teachers, like me, the professor, whose work is not physical? Those are basic questions in social and political philosophy.
Oh, no, both of them are important because you have to learn and you need shelter, food, and water, and clothes.
Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Once there was a tree. And she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk. There he is, and there are his shoes. And swing from her branches.
And this is a story about a boy and his relationships to a tree as he gets older.
And the boy loved the tree.
So he goes through these different life stages and he treats the tree differently. And I think initially it looks like it's a very benign relationship. And at some point, everybody thinks this isn't okay anymore. The kid is abusing the tree in some way.
Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy. I am too busy to climb trees, said the boy. I want a house to keep me warm, he said. I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house? I have no house, said the tree. The forest is my house. But you may cut off my branches and build a house, then you will be happy.
So the tree kept on giving and giving, right? That's the title of the book, The Giving Tree. Shadanya?
She kept giving until she was just a stump.
What do you think about that?
She was so sad because the only thing she had is just a little piece of trunk. I like that she's being nice, but why do you have to give away everything? Because he gonna live with no house, no food, no couches, no children, no wife. You don't need that. He don't got nothing to draw. I'm not saying that she shouldn't not be nice. I like that she was giving, but why you gave him the big part of you, and now you just have the little part of you. you gave away your own self. If he didn't cut down a tree, the tree's branch, how's he gonna live? He's gonna just stay cold. And he's not gonna have a house, he's not gonna have children, he's not gonna have nothing because he don't have nothing if the tree said no, because if he didn't have nothing, the tree said yes because the tree knew he didn't have no food, so the tree said, you can borrow some of my apples to eat.
I disagree with Isaac because I go with Isaac. We need the environment.
That's what he said.
We need it. No, he didn't. He said he disagrees with me. We need the environment so we can be safe.
When children come to school, particularly if they live in a background where they're not used to analytical discussion and academic discussion, their ability to learn in school is very much limited until they learn how to learn. And certainly learning listening skills, learning to be respectful of one another, learning how to participate in a discussion are basic skills to successful learning.
It's nice to see their brain thinking on a different level than, what's 2 + 2 or what's a noun or what's a verb. It's a different way of thinking for them, which is so important.
I mean, I know my kids both really loved it. They loved the program. They loved interacting with college students. They loved the idea that they were being asked questions as second graders and to give their opinions. That's very validating to a second grader when college students ask that, and I think it gives them a sense of their worth and their ability, makes them rise to the occasion.
I received a grant from the Squire Family Foundation to support my work, and one of the things that we were hoping is that this course could become a model for other schools. So that's why I developed the website in the way that I did. The website presents summaries of the philosophical issues in a story, and then questions you can ask to start a discussion for, dozens of books now. I mean, that's why, in part, I wrote the book, Big Ideas for Little Kids, is to sort of really help anyone who wanted to do this particular course or some other version of it, just have the materials to do it and enough instruction about how it would work to be able to do it. So I'm, it's one of those steal this book, steal this idea, go ahead, do it in your school.
Anyone have any questions about the course or comments?
Kids like to ask questions. Well, if I can generalize from my son, he was a little why machine. And I think kids love asking questions. I mean, the world is really pretty puzzling. There are things that don't make sense, and they want to know why it's like this. So, philosophy, as Aristotle says, begins in wonder, and who wonders more about the world than kids?